I play a lot of different instruments, and I really enjoy playing different instruments, but I've never tried to make my own instrument, so that's what we're going to be doing today. The challenge for today is going to be only using what is in the workshop right now. Only materials that I have on hand that I've got for free to build an instrument completely of my own. Now, the first instrument that immediately came to mind for me was a recorder. Mostly because it's a very simple thing to do, and because I have a ton of various lengths of metal pipe that could very easily be used to make the body. Now, the only challenging bit of making the recorder is going to be doing the actual head, where the sound is coming from. To start making it, I just grabbed a piece of scrap wood I had lying around and started drilling a hole through it. If you take a look at the cross section of a recorder head here, you can see that there's actually two parts, the outside wooden piece and the inside wooden piece. By drilling the hole straight down through this piece of wood, I'm effectively building the outside piece. Now, if the entire inside was completely hollow, we would have no whistling effect, so that's where the inside piece comes into play. I'll be simply making a round piece that will fit inside the hole, and then carving a small channel through it, so the air is going out a small gap, and this causes the whistling sound, as the air oscillates between going in and out of the recorder as you blow. There's a very clear gap where the air is going to be flowing through, and that should be just enough for the rest of this to work. Now what I want to do is carve a little diagonal hole into here to have the sound actually come out. So when this is done, I should have a very rudimentary whistle, but then I'll start building the body to turn it into something actually musical. So, unfortunately, that did not work at all. I spent over an hour trying to carve out the hole in this piece of wood to get some sort of sound out of it, but no matter what I tried, no matter how I changed up the carving, it did not work at all. So ultimately, I ended up giving up on that first design, and I tried to make a fully metal build work, using a metal pipe as the body and a metal mouthpiece slid over top. Now this was a little bit better, and I could get a whistle note out of it, but it was not consistent at all, and trying to make the whole any better just made the entire thing sound worse. So I realized that if I was going to be successful here, I would have to completely rethink what I was doing, and perhaps have a bit of a combination of the previous ideas. So I've done a bit of research and a bit of experimentation, and I've found out some cool things. So the metal pipe that I showed earlier is okay, but it's got a couple of problems if it really wanted to be a good flute. Now the problem here is that in the scenario of a flute, you want the air that you're blowing against to be hitting a very, very sharp and thin edge that kind of expands out like a wedge. Something kind of like this on the edge there. Now the problem is, because the metal is so thin, it's really, really hard to get a profile like this. But you know what's very easy to get a profile like this in? Wood. So all I'm doing is having a combination of my very first design and my second design to come up with something new, a third design. Now this thing looks hideous. I know that it does look hideous, and that's okay because it's 100% going for function over form. This is a test piece that I made to see if I could actually make a proper sound. So all I did here is similar to how I made the very first design, where I drilled a hole through the piece of wood and then carved a sort of sound chamber. The difference here is that I'm blowing directly against this hole instead of blowing across the larger hole to have sound come out of it. And this works great already. This was a much, much simpler design to do. All I had to do was go in there with an angled drill bit, and that was pretty much it. I had to clean up the hole a tiny bit, but it works quite well already. That's a good whistle note with very, very little work. From here though, it's all about tuning. I need to chop the end of this pipe off to a certain length to get the right notes that I'm looking for. From there, I need to do similar math so I can figure out where I want to drill all of the holes in this piece of metal to make proper sounding notes. Let me explain how I figured out where to drill the holes and how long to make the flute while I clean up the mouthpiece in the background. Now you could do all this math on your own, but this whole project has been a really good exercise in going to other people for help and using the resources you have available to figure out how to do things you wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. Now some of the sources that were useful for me include the Flutomat calculator, where you can put in pretty much any size information for a flute you want to build, and it'll give you accurate information on where to space all of the holes. I also referenced this video from Nicholas Brass about making flutes out of PVC pipe, and an Instructable page that followed a similar idea. It would have taken me so much longer to be able to figure out all of these things on my own, but if I have the opportunity, I'm going to reference these sources, and if you're interested in making something similar, consider checking these guys out and giving them your support. But after doing that research and inputting all of my measurements into the calculator, I was ready to start drilling some of the holes. Now, unfortunately for me, the calculator is extremely precise and gives you up to 4 decimal points of measurement of where to put your holes. Using a regular tape measure and a drill, I'm not getting 4 decimals of accuracy, so some of the holes were a tiny bit off, which resulted in not all of them being perfectly usable. But I was left with a 5-hole flute that works quite nicely. After drilling all of the holes, I officially have myself a working flute made completely out of trash that I've found here in my workshop. All it really is composed of is a wooden block, a metal pipe, and a little bit of tape to hold everything together. But here's an example of how it sounds as I go down the scale. It works. It's certainly not the prettiest or the best sounding, but to be made in just about a day or two out of completely free materials, I'm pretty pleased with how this has come out. And I've really enjoyed trying my hand at making a new instrument, so I think this is going to be a series like the video game items that is going to continue for a while. So in a couple of months from now, I'll revisit all of this, and it won't be the exact same instrument. I'm going to find stuff in the workshop again that I can use to make a completely new instrument. Otherwise though, if you want a little bit more behind the scenes into my headspace in projects like this, kind of where my thoughts are when I'm building something, and a little bit of background into where the ideas are coming from, consider checking out my Patreon, linked down below. Otherwise, if you're interested in checking out some other projects that I've made that I promise are a lot nicer than this flute, consider checking out my Etsy, also linked down below. And if neither of those are interesting to you, well, thank you very much for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Amazing. So good.